Hey, what is up guys, and welcome for another Wulong video. Wulong Fallen Dynasty is a disaster. We got a brand new expansion for the game just a week ago and it was not what we expected. Let's not even forget that there were next to no hype surrounding this DLC. Team Ninja released an image of the DLC a month in advance to get players ready for the upcoming expansion, and that was basically it. They did absolutely nothing to promote this expansion, as if they themselves are not entirely happy with what they have coming. Not to mention that the game is already in a very rough state, especially on PC, with overall mixed reviews on Steam and very recently sitting at mostly negative reviews. Most of the reviews are on the terrible performance, but after games like Nioh and Stranger of Paradise, Wulong was just a huge step back. I even had a poll asking you all if you want to jump back into any of these games. Between Nioh, Stranger of Paradise and Wulong, almost 50% of you chose to rather come back into Stranger of Paradise. I'm not going to lie, I was expecting this exact outcome. I haven't played Nioh, so I can't compare this game to that. But Stranger of Paradise is leaps and bounds superior than this. What is this game doing to catch the players? Especially in a year like this when we have such big hitters like Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 16 and Legend of Zelda. Some of the biggest games are coming out this year, and what is really making people get this DLC and wanting to jump back in? Absolutely nothing. There is nothing in this DLC that was worth it. The main story of this DLC only goes for 3 missions. Yes, we get only 3 new missions, which if you are good at the game, you could finish them within the hour. Then we just get a few extra side missions, which is just fighting those same bosses again, which is again nothing special. The new weapon type that we got, which is the Cestus, is alright. And also we got new spells, which even after spending almost 5 hours farming the same boss over and over again, I still haven't gotten the spells to drop. If this is how the players are going to get the new content in the DLC, then I'm sure no one is going to be spending the time grinding the same bosses just to get a single spell. Also, the spells are not even anything to brag about. They are some of the worst. After spending so long grinding to get the spells, and what you get is something that will really make you go crazy. I spent so much time to get this spell, and this is what I get. I spent 5 hours to get a spell that will have me shoot a frost arrow instead of a normal arrow. No one even uses ranged weapons. This spell is a total waste of time. Who even thought of this? There is nothing special in this DLC. The parry system in Wulong is what lured the players in, as it was just something that had to scratch that Sekiro itch. But then you soon realize that the game has nothing more exciting mechanics to keep the players engaged. Both the main game and the DLC didn't add anything new that would make the game feel fresh and exciting. Also the fact that there are no endgame activities to do other than just redoing the same missions over again and just a few side missions that will have you go and collect an item or defeat a boss, and that is basically it. Also, when you unlock a new difficulty, you have to forcefully play through the entire story again to get to some of those endgame missions. Yes, you must play through the entire story and redo almost all the missions again for absolutely no reason. Like, I don't want to do the whole story again, I just want to jump into the new difficulty and get some of those new weapons and gear. Unlike Stranger of Paradise, when the DLC was released, you can only play it on the newest difficulty. You don't have to forcefully play through the whole entire story on the new difficulty to unlock the story missions. The new story can only be played after you complete the previous difficulty, which meant that you have some sort of progression and power that you need to chase to go further in the story and the end game. Although that had its own share of problems, but it was still a way for players to feel like they're getting something for spending their time grinding and farming after making their builds. Which brings us to the combat. The melee in Wulong isn't great at all, and the magic in this game just doesn't feel so good. Using spells just doesn't feel satisfying. There's nothing flashy, like dropping a puddle of crap on the ground, the lightning storm that does next to no damage while also being so long to cast that almost 100% of the time the enemy will either move away or you will get hit. All these abilities have such bad cast times and they will just linger around for so long before they do any sort of damage. Comparing it to Stranger of Paradise, we have such cool moves and abilities that you want to try out. You want to pull off these moves and see all those cool flashy abilities destroy enemies. Regardless of what ability it is, not one single skill is bad. Anything and everything can be made to be powerful. Melee in this game is just atrocious, as fatal strikes and spells do so much more damage than melee attacks, that melee attacks just feel like gathering the spirit that you need to cast your spells. Almost like Diablo, where you would use your basic attacks only to get your spirit or resource, then using it to launch your spells. This is why I found Diablo 4 to get boring and repetitive super quickly, and this is what Wulong feels like as well. Even in the endgame, there is still no way to spam spells or any type of passive spirit generation. Melee builds are non-existent in this game. Almost 90% of all builds will be based on you using your magic and your spells. Speaking of builds, Wulong has some of the most basic builds that you could ever get. The bonuses that the armor sets offer is almost the same everywhere, and unless you have a luck based build, every enemy will drop either a 2 or 3 star item, which are completely useless. Just have a look. These are some of the greatest armor sets that are extremely hard to get, and just look at the bonuses. HP damage dealt, HP damage dealt based on negative effects on the enemies, HP damage dealt based on your defense, spirit damage dealt based on your morale, and HP damage dealt when you counter. Can you see what I'm trying to say? There's nothing exciting or innovative here. Are there any different ways to play? No matter what set you may go with, you will still be making builds around the spells, and all they do is increase your damage one way or the other. The DLC only increased our item upgrade levels by 1. Just 1 level. Instead of +9, we can now go up to +10. That barely makes a dent in any of your builds. Let's say that you upgraded your gear to +10. After seeing your attack power on your weapon to have 600, you will think, nice, I now have a super good weapon that will do good damage. But then when you jump in, and what you get is still a weapon that does 30 to 40 damage. Why? Just why? What is the point? 30 to 40 damage? Seriously? Okay, maybe the martial arts will do some decent damage. No, they do the exact same damage. The only real set that actually does something cool is the Black Emperor, where you get infinite spirit for 5 seconds after a fatal strike, which is good, but in some cases, and especially against humans, who are going to be nearly 80% of your enemy type, will always just keep on dodging after you perform a fatal strike, that you won't really get any hits on them during those 5 seconds. So even that set feels useless sometimes. Once again, comparing it to Stranger of Paradise, through the early game and even through the end game, you have so many different ways to play. With having 28 jobs in the base game, with more coming with each DLC, we had so many ways to play, all being totally unique than the other. So after playing Stranger of Paradise or even Neo, you feel like there is no real content in Wulong that will have the players engaged for a long period of time. They tried to blend Neo and Sekiro together, but what we got was something that will have you excited at first, but in the end you will not keep on coming back to it. With no real in-game activities or any sense of progression, I found no real reason to keep on playing with the same builds. I still have hope that maybe in the next DLC will bring something new and exciting, but I'm still very skeptical. I'm not saying Wulong is a bad game, it has its good moments, but it's just not something that I could play for a long time. What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy the DLC? Maybe you liked the game and you have your opinions to share. Let me know what your take is on this. I would love to hear from you all. I will catch you all next time.